We'll start recording. Thanks. Great, got it. Well, welcome everyone. And we know that there'll be more folks arriving, but as with all of these webinars, it'll be recorded, it'll show up in your email, it'll show up on the newsletter, it'll show up in Amanda's messages out to you, and it'll be on our website. So the slides will be out there as future resources. Carolyn has a ton of great information about how we do our food sourcing, and I have a ton of information about how we do food recovery and the work that you all are doing. We'll ask that you stay muted, except when you have a question. You can raise your hand electronically or wave, and Caitlin and I will be monitoring that part while Carolyn's presenting. And then we're definitely going to be encouraging questions. So feel free to also put them in the chat, and then in between slides, we'll answer them. So please feel free to make it as interactive as you can. And we all have lots of things to share with you too. Okay. I think we're good. Any other things that I forgot, Carolyn and Caitlin, before she launches?
I think we're ready.
Okay, go for it. And I'm going to mute now too.
All right, welcome to the Food Sourcing and Food Recovery webinar. My name, if you haven't met me before, you might have heard of me. Carolyn Tolbert, I'm the Food Sourcing Manager here, and I've been doing that for about 5 years.
Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin Price, Health and Nutrition Programs Manager.
And I'm Kathleen Bassetti, the Food Recovery Coordinator. Take it away, Carolyn.
All right. Food sourcing. So where does all the food come from? Well, it comes from a lot of places. Just to give you an indication, this pie chart shows a typical day in our warehouse, the percentages of where the different food comes from. So on this particular day when this was taken, wholesale was at 51%, donated 25%, TFAP 10%, HipNap 10%, and Nourish New York 4%. These do change, obviously, depending on what commodities are in the warehouse, but for the most part, about half of our food is actually purchased wholesale. A lot of people are under the misconception that food bank food is donated 100%, and it is definitely not. About 50% is actually purchased, and the other 50 usually comes in some form of a donated product or maybe grant funded product. First question, does anybody know what TFAP stands for? We're going to talk about TFAP first. I'm sure you've heard the acronym, maybe don't know what it stands for. It actually stands for the temporary food, the Emergency Food Assistance Program. So we get commodities, I'm sure you're aware if you work for an agency, from the USDA, which we call TFAP. So TFAP actually began, believe it or not, in 1981. It was called the Temporary Food Assistance Program. And in 1990, it got upgraded to the Emergency Food Assistance Program that we know today. And food quantities that come from this are based on the number of persons on unemployment and people with incomes below the poverty line. The products that are offered can range anywhere from beans to proteins like meat. And we also get everything from spaghetti sauce to fish. TFIP also gives us an entitlement budget. I'm not sure if many of you are aware of that. We get a lot of bonus offers, but we actually get an entitlement budget every year around this time of the year, late August, beginning September, that we can choose. They have a catalog that we can actually go to and choose what we would like to have for the commodities for our particular needs. So normally what we do is when we look at the catalog and what's available, we spend first commodities that support our backpack program. So it saves us money from purchasing wholesale. So usually they offer things like macaroni and cheese, which is one of our staples. And we would definitely choose things like that. And then after we've kind of gone through what would be most useful for our backpack program, we make a shift to extra things for holiday, whether it be for Easter time or for Thanksgiving, Christmas time. We try to find commodities that would align with sides to go with the main proteins that we have available during holiday time. And as I mentioned before, bonus loads are quite frequent. We get offers through New York State. USDA goes across the country to all the food banks, and they allot so many truckloads per state. And then we actually work with OGS, which is the Office of General Services out of Albany, and they tell us how many cases of product that we can have. And sometimes we're lucky enough to get a full truckload of something. Other times we might have to share with either one or two other New York State food banks, depending on what the actual commodity is. So that pretty much sums up how TFEP and USDA work. The next thing we do is I purchase wholesale. So I do have the ability to purchase from several straight directly from manufacturers. As you can see below, I listed, we purchased straight from Chobani, HP Hood, Diversified, and Chicken of the Sea, which makes it really nice to be able to go to the manufacturers directly and not have to use a third-party vendor, which I do for a lot of our stuff. So wholesale purchasing, we have I have quite a few different sources that I look to get product. First and foremost, we have Feeding America actually has a grocery portal. I can actually go on there, and some of their prices are better than what my vendors can offer me, and sometimes they're not. But for a majority of main staples, Feeding America does have connections with manufacturers, and they do offer truckloads of product. So I always compare prices with my local vendors and then look what that looks like versus what the manufacturers are offering as a delivered price. I believe it or not, I have vendors here on the East Coast, and I also have vendors on the West Coast. And a lot of them have different warehouses in different parts of the country. So the price of products can vary because a lot of it has to do with the freight costs. So it could be cheaper, believe it or not, to get something from the West Coast and it here on the East Coast, depending on where their excuse me, where their warehouses are located. So besides Feeding America, the vendors that I have across the US and the manufacturers that I can order from directly, the last place that we wholesale purchase from is from local farms during our local growing season, which is right now. So after wholesale purchasing, we move to donated food, which Kathleen's going to delve into a little bit further. We do have retail pickup, and I'm not sure, some of your agencies, I'm sure, might go to local stores and pick up donations. We also send our trucks out to the 6 counties that we currently serve to do the same thing. So it's a good steady flow of donated product for us in retail pickup. Then we have food drives, a lot of schools, businesses, and once a year we get the US postal drive called Stamp Out Hunger that also collect a lot of food for us. Thirdly, we have walk-ins. Believe it or not, pretty much almost every day we have people wanting to donate product to us, and they just come in to the lobby and drop off whatever they have, or if it's a whole carload, we actually direct them to the back of our building and take it right in the warehouse and put it away. And then lastly, we have a really cool opportunity through Feeding America. They have what's called the choice system. And every single day, manufacturers from across the United States list donated products. It's usually either something that has a short code date, it could be overruns, it could be bulk product that they're trying to get rid of, such as cereal. It could be mislabeled, or they could just have an inventory clear out. So what happens is we have what I call it fake money. It's shares, and it's based on the size of your food bank. So every day I go in and see what loads are available, and it's kind of like placing a bet. Here's a load of cereal. How many shares do I want to bet? Put in for this particular load of cereal. So it's kind of like, it's sort of a crapshoot, but it's kind of cool. It's fun. You go in every day, and it's kind of like Christmas. You see what's available and you bid on it. And if you have the greatest number of shares that bid on it, then you win the load. And the really nice thing is, anything on choice that's donated, we don't have to pay for the product. The only thing that we have to pay for is the transportation to get it to the food bank. So it saves us a lot of money, obviously, in wholesale purchasing, to be able to just have to pay for transportation. Next thing I just wanted to touch on really briefly is freight. Usually if I get a wholesale product, freight is already figured into the price of that product. But something like I explained earlier, like a choice load, freight is just an individual cost that we have to pay. So how much does freight cost? Does anybody have any idea? Well, I can tell you, it can run anywhere, depending on where the truck's coming from. In relation to New York State, where we are here at the food bank, it can run upper hundreds of dollars all the way into the multiple thousands of dollars. It sounds like a lot, but honestly, if we're not paying for the cost of the product, it's a good deal just to have to pay the shipping on it. So, but it's something that we have to figure into our budgets is freight. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is Nourish New York. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar. You probably see the Nourish New York designation on the menu. Does anybody have any idea, like, what started this whole thing? Nourish New York actually was a response to the pandemic. So in April of 2020, the governor of New York signed into a bill some extra money called Nourish New York that was originally to help the farmers. We heard that farmers were having to dump a bunch of their milk, and the state actually wanted to do something to help farmers from, having to waste a lot of the food that they had. So Nourish New York got put into the New York State budget. And the following year, it started in April of 2020, and then it was signed into law in 2021. So the only stipulation is that the ingredients have to be sourced in New York State. So if it's cattle, it has to be, if we were to get ground beef, the cattle has to be raised in New York State. On all the ingredients, up to, I believe it's 51% of the final product has to actually be founded in New York State. So we have used it to purchase dairy, produce, and proteins. things that we don't normally have on our menu. We've been exceptionally happy to have this because it's allowed us to buy way more dairy products than we've ever carried before in the past. Usually we just had shredded cheese, you know, shredded mozzarella and shredded cheddar, but now with Nourish New York, we're able to buy, we've been buying cottage cheese, other types of cheese, sour cream, lactate, and just really expanded our dairy options, which has been a great thing for us. So hopefully, as far as I know, it's going to continue in the New York State budget. And I hope that it does because it opens up a lot of avenues for us that to bring on products that we normally wouldn't be able to carry.
Let's pause for a second. I think someone was waving. Sarah Wilkin, did you have a question or was I just seeing your hand? Just to shake your head, no.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
No.
No, it's okay. Any questions at this moment? Okay, great. Thanks, Carolyn. It's great.
Sure. So that kind of sums up Nourish New York. And the last thing, or excuse me, the next to last thing I want to talk about is Healthy Harvest. So does anybody know, do agencies actually pay for produce? Correct, you don't. We have what we call a Healthy Harvest grant. So that was actually started several years ago to be able to provide produce all year long. Pretty much prior to that, it was kind of difficult outside of our local season, which runs from about mid to late June to probably mid-September. We get from about 7 or 8 local farms. And we also purchase Healthy Harvest from, there's some co-ops available, and Feeding America also has what's called Meal Connect, which kind of works almost like their grocery portal. So you can go on, and farms from across the United States have different commodities, whether you're looking for a mixed load of, say, you know, carrots and squash, and maybe throw some other types of produce in there. Or if you just want a full load of potatoes, you can go on there, choose one of the offers, and it's usually shipped within a couple of days, which is really amazing. So Healthy Harvest has really expanded over the years, and we've really made a commitment to keeping produce available on the menu, like I said, all year long versus just the local season. Next thing I want to talk about is HIPNAP. And does anybody know what the acronym stands for? HPNAP? It's a mouthful, I know. It's actually the Hunger Prevention and Nutrition Assistance Program. So through HIPNAP, we get a small fluid milk grant. It usually affords us about 100 cases or so of milk per month. And some of our food, I'm sure you're aware of, is covered by a HIPNAP grant. And there are kind of strict guidelines on foods that are covered. For example, canned fruits can only be in water or natural juice, or they don't qualify. Can't even do a lot, I know, still come in syrup, can't even be light syrup. It has to be either natural juice or water to qualify. Canned vegetables have to be low sodium or no salt added. So there's some things, you know, when I'm going out to purchase, and I'll talk about how I do bidding for our wholesale products in a couple minutes here. I make sure that I include these things on the bid form so that we make sure that, you know, we need to have all of our vegetables, our canned vegetables need to be low sodium or no salt added. Same thing, like I said, with the fruit, it has to either be in water or juice, and I have to make sure that I tell my vendors that are bidding on it, we want to make sure we're bidding apples to apples and the right kind of foods that qualify for HIPNAP funding. So how do I actually go about purchasing food? So what I do every Monday is I take an inventory of what we currently have in stock, and I look at whatever seems to be on the low side. And normally it takes anywhere from usually 5 to 10 days, depending on what the product is. Fish usually takes a little bit longer, but most products I can usually get in once I place an order. It's usually here within like less than 2 weeks. So what I do on Monday is, like I said, I gather everything that I need to replenish in the warehouse. And I actually have a form that I send out to probably about a dozen different companies, vendors across the United States, and say, for example, I need 600 cases of low sodium green beans. I need 200 cases of white rice. So I send them a whole list of what I need, and I ask them to please provide to me how long it's going to take to get here, what the cost is, and I also ask them like what the expiration date is, like how long how long is this product good for? Because we don't want something obviously that's gonna expire in, a month or two even. We want it to be further out. And usually, for the most part, most products are fresh and usually have like a year's dating on them. So then once all my vendors get back to me with their pricing, I make sure that we're comparing comparable sizes, apples to apples, and then I choose who I'm going to actually award the bid to. And I just send them an email and say, I'd like to get these 600 cases of green beans. And they send me back a confirmation and let me know when it can be expected to be delivered here. And then I create a purchase order for that particular product. And then once I've completed the purchase order, it actually goes to our receiver in the warehouse so that he has it to match up with the paperwork that comes in from the vendor when it arrives on the truck. So he knows, yep, I'm supposed to have 600 cases of green beans are supposed to be coming. So that's pretty much how I run things. It's a week to week. I usually have stuff to bid out every single week. We're going through that much inventory that it's pretty busy. And I'm also constantly looking for new vendors. We do have a group and it's pretty standard. I've talked to the other food banks across New York State, and we kind of pretty much use the same vendors that are out there, but there's always, new opportunities, and I enjoy talking to new vendors and seeing what they have and what their pricing structures are like. So it makes it fun because it's still challenging to be able to, talk to new vendors and see if, we can become one of their customers. And just to let you know, kind of what I strive for when I'm looking, better tasting products. We've done some taste tests in the past, and we've tried to get a good tasting tuna was really important on the menu. We've taste tested peanut butter and some canned chicken and cereal, and we continue to do that. And then we want things that are better nutritionally. We're always looking for lower sodium, less sugar products that are healthier. Manufactured in the United States, I aim for that, but a lot of times US product isn't available, so it is imported from different countries. Obviously, we're always looking for the freshest produce that we're able to get. And we like to make sure that we're hitting all the different categories of food, from grains to proteins to dairy, produce, meats, and a good balance. We're not always going to be able to carry 100% of, eat these foods often, the green foods. But we do our best to balance, healthy with not so healthy, so that we have a good variety of product available for the agencies to choose from. And that's pretty much food sourcing 101. Does anybody have any questions?
Carolyn, This is Pat Law. I have a question. Have you ever broached burned dairy?
No.
The reason I asked, I happen to have a son-in-law who is in charge of one of their plants. And I was talking to him, and they've been approached like, these 5K benefit runs and all like that. But they prefer, what he told me is they prefer to donate to somebody that's a charity.
Okay.
So I was just curious if you had ever broached them. They have such a, I mean, they don't just produce milk. They produce milk, yogurt, cottage cheese, ice cream. I'm not sure about cheese products, but those I know that they produce. I mean, they have their own farms, everything. I mean, everything comes from their farms to be
Right.
processed.
No, I never have. And it's the hard thing about donation is there's kind of an unwritten rule with the food banks. So if you have, say, a burned dairy processing plant in your backyard, you're going to be the first food bank that would have the right of refusal if there is anything. And, sadly for us, we're pretty much in a manufacturing desert. We don't have any, we have no
Yeah,
manufacturers in our 6-county area.
they do have
So
like deli type stores.
what's that?
They do. They have like delis and gas station thingies in Tompkins County. There's not a lot in Tompkins County.
Mhm.
Just a thought.
Yeah,
I mean,
I won't even know like who to contact to I would have to dig to find out who to even talk to because I don't know what they do with their excess from their delis and stuff.
Get that information for you if you want. If you don't, fine.
Let's circle back, Pat, because it kind of falls into the where Carolyn and I would collaborate, and I can list
Right.
that. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything else about food sourcing? TFAP? HIPNAP? Okie dokie. Well, thank you all for attending, and if you ever have any questions, please, reach out. You can find me via email on the website if you have any burning questions. Thank you very much for your time.
That was great,
Kathleen,
Carolyn.
you're up.
All right, and that was great, and thank you. And as questions trickle up, feel free to put things in the chat as well. Oh, good, yeah, and Bill wrote one about Crowley and Polio. Yep, so I might not get to all of those companies, but I will mention a few in my presentation. So stretch for a second while I move over to a different PowerPoint. If anyone needs to move around for a second, I'll go for it, and I'm gonna put my screen up. All right. So from the beginning. And Caitlin and I were on the chat. We're not sure why the slides were moving forward before maybe Carolyn was ready for them. So it might happen again with mine. We'll see how it goes. So let's see, got that part up, and now I'm just going to share this with you all. And Carolyn, you might want to go on mute. You might not need to, but you might. Let's see. Okay. Can everyone see that? Nope, no, you can't yet. Can you see that now? Someone unmute and tell me if you can see what is food waste.
It's up there, Caitlin.
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, good. So then I just need to make sure I have here we go. Here are my notes. All right, everybody. So welcome. So, well, I can't talk about food recovery without talking about food waste first. So any food thrown away can really be considered food waste.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to mute Sarah there. Okay. The basic background that I'm sure a lot of you know is how climate change really poses a severe threat to ecosystems, biodiversity, agriculture, human health, and well-being. The rising temperatures, extreme weather events, melting ice caps, they just are all some of the consequences of climate change. And it's caused by greenhouse gas emissions and primarily from burning fossil fuels. So with that sort of the scientific background there, I want to ask a sort of a very basic question of, so given the things that we all know, like, why is food wasted? Why do we waste food? And feel free to come off mute or put it in the chat. Now, can I see the chat? Not necessarily. Caitlin, if you see any comments, let me see if I can see the chat. That I don't know how to do that technology wise. Anything in there?
Not yet.
Okay, I'll give you a second. Why do we waste food?
Overproduction?
Great. Anybody else? What about in your household?
Overproduction?
Great. Right. And I didn't like it. Oh, my kids didn't like it. Yeah, it was too much. I couldn't eat it fast enough. I didn't bring a container when I went to that restaurant. And so there it goes. Or it went bad, literally. And labels, but we'll talk about those in the next slide. So I'm certainly going to provide information for your pantries and meal sites, but also for your own life. Because to me, like, I find the food recovery, like the whole topic, really empowering because everyone can do it. It doesn't matter how much time or money any of us have. We can save ourselves money, save our community money, as well as reducing the environmental impact. So the next slide has this excellent study by a company called MITRE that I learned about by a company called, an organization called ReFed, and they gave a presentation earlier this year. So this is from last year, this study, and I just found it incredibly compelling. I'm not going to read all of what's on the slide, but it has some great statistics, and it really does talk about like the power that we each have in terms of leftover foods. So really being able to do something about it. Now, what size or status, or how would you describe households that waste the most food? What would you think of are the households that waste the most food? Put it in the chat or come off mute. Who's got an idea? Smaller, larger, working class, middle class. What's your thought?
Got one in the chat. Donna says people with small children, and Pam and Rich are thinking busy people or people with more money.
Exactly, all. Wealthier families waste more, larger families, and then children. They didn't break it down into age range, but it, totally makes sense, right? And labeling. So labeling is one of those incredibly confusing issues. And Caitlin's addressed this before, and we'll talk a little bit about it in the next section of the webinar. But if you haven't seen this video that we have on our website, I'm just going to remind you to just go check it out. It's super helpful and funny. And probably a lot of us here have the grandmas and maybe ourselves say, just smell it. Just open that milk and smell it and see if it's okay. Some of us do a little taste, but just in terms of the general guidelines that a lot of us were raised with. But labeling, completely confusing and not regulated. So it just makes sense to be able to validate for folks, this is a confusing piece. And we do have, again, more information on that coming. So the last thing in terms of on a personal level is I really love this information in this slide, because again, it just feels like, wow, we can each do something. Even if it's carrying around that bottle so that we're using less single serve items, or going, wow, I don't actually have to toss all of those spices that they say are expired. What can I, make them into, freeze them because I'm not going to use them. Who can I give them to in my neighborhood? Okay. So now to food recovery. I'm not going to read all of these slides, but there's a couple in terms of the information I want you to have. And the basic act and practice of what food recovery is. So this is in terms of covering that. Collecting fresh edible food that would have otherwise gone to waste from grocers or restaurants or burned dairies, as Pat mentioned. And other food establishments distributing it to local organizations like yours, who then give it out to the community members who are affected by food insecurity. And sometimes it's not perishable. Sometimes it's canned goods. Sometimes it's personal care items. And what a difference that can make in terms of stretching one's monthly budget. This is what my boss, Dave Patterson, and I have written in terms of the food bank's commitment to food recovery. And as you all are very aware of, there were more requests for food in the first 2 quarters of 2024 than in the past for this time of year, in the 40 years, as far as I understand it. Others could confirm on that. But so the increased donations that you'll see in some future slides that we're receiving, that you're all receiving who are picking up from these stores, have definitely helped address the need, and also a lot more is needed. We don't know where this year is going, but as Carolyn mentioned, right now, food donations is really just like 25% of the food that the food bank is getting out there to you all to redistribute to the community. So a lot more is needed. Really proud to be part of this program, and the work you all do is key. Those daily pickups by your teams of volunteers and the relationships that you're all building or have built with the store staff, it's a testament to commitment to community. And we really are in this together. We really count on each other's consistency and professionalism to keep this food flowing. So how this got started for the food bank is when 9 years ago, when Missy Knowles was the food sourcing manager, we launched the food recovery program, and it was called PDP, Partner Driven Pounds. And Walmart gave us this first equipment grant, and then we were off and running. And by the way, for those who don't know, Missy is the owner-operator of Town Tavern in Erin, New York, and she frequently caters events that we have. It's great to see her and her wonderful food. Who do we partner with? So this whole group on the left are called the Blue Donors. They're the large chains, and they have a working relationship with Feeding America, and then all the food banks that fall under the Feeding America umbrella. And for those who, I'm sure everyone on here, but just for the sake of clarity, what's Feeding America? It's the umbrella organizations for food banks in our country. They provide resources and compliance guidance and just a ton of information and support to food banks, and therefore passed along to food pantries and meal sites. And I believe their main office is in Chicago. So we fill out receipts. So pantries pick up, the food bank picks up, and we fill out a receipt that then gets transferred to be tracked nationally so that these companies know how much they're donating. And as you probably know, they're getting a tax write-off for sure. There's a tax benefit, absolutely. In our region, we also have these number of stores and the 2 distribution centers up top, but there are others that probably I just didn't get on this slide. And these places are donating, some of them every single week. And they're really key also to the work being done to getting all this food out to the community. Working on some new partnerships, Dandy, Marabido. I didn't have Burn Dairy on my radar, but I certainly will put it there. And we want to leverage the food bank. We want to leverage our resources, the Feeding America connections. And we're also aiming to start a regional campaign in 2025 to bring in the Dollar Generals. Some of your pantries are picking up there regularly and have already been forging those one-on-one relationships, but we also want to be able to do it on a widespread level that can have some, traction that, again, Feeding America has started. So if there's places that I forgot, please put it in the chat or, email me, let me know. Let's see. So the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act, I imagine most of you have known about it. It's been around since October 1996, and how this law really protects us, which has been very key. So it's protecting us and protecting the store. And it's a really reassuring document is what I've found, that when I go to a store and there's a staff member, whether it's a new staff member or it's an employee who just hasn't dealt with food recovery much, knowing that they are protected is key. But what do you notice that's wrong in this picture? Anyone come off mute and mention?
No labels.
Yeah,
just-
right?
no
You would
labels.
reject that right away.
There's bread that's open.
Yeah, isn't that so funny? I didn't create this picture, but I was like, and they put donation on it, and I just thought it was hilarious, so I wanted to share it with you. So, yeah, there we go. Okay, so then the New York scraps law, right? So in 2022, this was added, and it's been wonderful legislation. Not every state has it. California does, but not all states have something like this. And with this side by side, New York State created guidance to these businesses, and Feeding New York State, which, again, a little tangent here, but that's the organization that works with the 10 New York State food banks. They manage statewide grants, they source food, they partner with farmers and the food industry, and they do advocacy work and work with government like on all levels. So they're really key here, and they are staff member Jay Hawkins. He educates stores and food banks on this food scraps law, among other things. So this law went into effect, and it affected certain large scale businesses and organizations, but it's a long-term rollout. So over time, generators of waste that maybe aren't the big ones are also going to be required. So eventually that local grocery in your neck of the woods will be required to donate. And so as a result of this, and then and some other programs in terms of these companies, each grocery store has really been developing its own program to help address food waste and educate their own teams. They know they're required to donate, and they know they have the tax breaks, but it's also saving them money, right? It's saving them money on compost fees or their trash costs by not donating, saving them. And as I wrote here in it, my hope and what I'm seeing, and you'll see more examples of this, is that we'll be able to be shifting away or like graduating into that. It's not all about the requirements, right? It's about the relationships, and it's about doing the right thing and knowing it's making a difference. There are many examples of that. One of the last resources I wanted to share right here. So this is about these are examples of the kinds of like educational materials that I get from Feeding America, or that we develop here or borrow and use from or adopt from other food banks. So resources that show stores what can you donate and what can't you. So here's some resources that many of you picking up already have seen, and that they're on our website. We supply the scale, the thermal blanket, the thermometer, a chart for, for how you can track the weights, and then certainly instructions on this. So anything you need like that, I'm happy to get you more. It breaks, let me know. If there's things that you're finding, wow, it'd be really helpful to have this for the food recovery we do, let me know, because we have a budget. There might be more down the road to be able to support you. But I would say that the biggest thing is your team, is the human beings doing this work. But before I move on to that, one little note of clarification: if you're picking up food, whether from one another, meaning, okay, here I am at Valley and we got this big load from Target, and I know that's not necessarily where you pick up, and we can't use all these perishables, or we're not going to go through them all in our distribution, and I want to send some over to Bread of Life. Maybe that'd be too far away, but please, at Bread of Life, don't count that and put that weight in, because once it's been picked up, the weight that's first documented counts. That's it. We don't want to double count. So likewise, if you go to one of our MFPs and help out and pick up and take some of the leftovers, if we have leftovers at an MFP and you bring it back to your pantry for distribution, don't count that in your monthly tally of the partner-driven pounds, because it's already been tallied, and we don't want to double count. Does that make sense? Does anybody have a question? Okay, I'm seeing nodding. Thank you. So here's some of our crew in action. Our drivers pick up at the large retailers before or after their daily deliveries to you all, to the agency partners. And I want to thank Mike and Mikey D and Clint and Joe, who do the majority of these pickups for the food bank. And then hubby picked up there on the right, he's our receiver, and Chris, who's not shown in the picture, they weigh, wrap, they get everything ready for quick redistribution, among many other things that they do. And when we're closed, we'd really appreciate the partner agencies who pick up on our behalf and get those donations distributed right out. It really does take a village. So in my role, I get to support the store's programs and the sites who pick up, and hopefully build new relationships. So with retailers, but also with those of you and the partner agencies who want to start doing this work. And I do a fair amount of computer work too. But I'm here for you. I visit every store several times a year, and sometimes more frequently. And like you, I'm constantly thinking about how can we increase this flow of free food, good food, and get it into the community's bellies, not in the landfills. So what do the store staff say when I go to those visits, and what do they need from us? Like I said, you are key. You know, being responsive, respectful, sharing the stories that you share of the impact that that food is having. That really is a motivator, and it also helps people in their jobs and their day-to-day grind, right, of working in retail, to feel like connected to community. Sometimes they can just feel like I'm flooded with duty. But when I go to a store and I hear them talking about their work with you all, or what their experience was with a pickup from us, I can see something light up in them, and it's significant. The majority of the feedback that I hear is great, how great it's going. And they really appreciate your consistency. And they also value how fast the food is getting right out, right? Because we know how highly perishable these things are. A few receivers have asked me to relay this message, that if you are not going to be picking up, right, because if it's a holiday time or there's something else happening that you're going to be, the pantry or meal site is closed, just communicate. You know, that attention to detail, it makes the biggest difference. In fact, I was at a store, it was yesterday actually, and that manager made a point, small store, so I got to talk to the manager, but he made a point of saying, we had a regular volunteer that was picking up. He had to change his schedule. He was away, and he had a sub come in, and that store was like, please thank them again for how well that's going and how much I appreciate just going the extra mile and valuing the relationship. So in these past 10 months, I've been learning from you all. I have been witnessing your relationships. I have been getting to know the stores. And you can tell, I hope you can tell how I'm like beaming with pride and so excited about the work that's happening here. This is really, you're tremendous. It's tremendous. Please share that accolade and that appreciation to your teams. But I will warn you that all this, the slides do not include everyone that's doing the work. So I got as far as I could. All right, we start with some of the store champs. So these folks up on the left are the CVS crew that are personally responsible for the personal care items that we receive. Billy Joe is in the middle, and she single-handedly sorts every item. And Judy over there on the left in that picture, it was her idea to donate the tampons and sanitary pads this spring. I'm not sure if all of your sites got them, but it was tremendous. And yeah. And they were asking for feedback, and they came and did a tour of the food bank. Some of us had done a tour of their enormous warehouse. They were moved. I'm serious to tell you that they were moved by just knowing and learning more about their impact. It is a huge motivator. And if you think about, they work in a facility, certainly with no windows, you know, and no contact with people who are receiving what they're doing. So now they know they're making a difference in people's lives. All right, this is Pete. Pete is a Cornell, Catholic Charities Hornell volunteer since 2010. And a neighbor at the time asked him, hey, Pete, what you doing in your retirement? And you got a truck. You want to come help volunteer? And he did. He jumped in, and he said, I interviewed him, and he said, it's been a really humbling experience. And the manager of Aldi's in Hornell mentioned how much the store loves having Pete and his buddy Jim. I think Jim just retired from the food pantry. They come to the store each week, and Pete's like, you can't get away with anything in this small town, he jokes. And Pete is not limited to food or local pickups. He picked up, I think, 17 bikes in the back of his truck from a local bank that was donating. And then he traveled to Rochester to recover items because his granddaughter saw that things were being tossed at the end of the semester. So he drove right up there and then got those out to pantry, to community. He picks up over the holidays when the pantry's closed, and he has keys, so he gets it stored in there, and then it's all ready for the pantry when it reopens. He's also mentored new volunteers at the pantry, and he wrote up a job description. I'll share that later and put it on our website. Thank you, Pete. Bill, there in the middle, works for Catholic Charities Bath, and Yvonne runs the bakery at this top store. I spoke with two men that are part of a substance recovery program that Bill runs, and they volunteer daily for these food pickups at Tops. These men were happy for an interview, but I won't use their real names. So Jay's been doing the pickups for 2 years with Bill. He enjoys it, he said. It keeps him busy. He likes helping people, and he's re-entering the workforce. So it's helped give him structure, he said, and rebuild his work ethic and create connections with people. And then Ned said, he's like, I like giving back. It feels good. I like waking up and knowing I have the bread run to do. And I never know when I'm going to need help. So I really want to be able to help others. And it's been a great form of community service, he said. And he's like, in that Turning Point Catholic Charities staff, they're all right too. And there's Carrie in the bottom left there, waiting with the almost empty fridge, waiting for the next delivery. So I was really moved watching these men and that Tops grocery store staff interact. Was tremendous. It was a real deal, right? They are community members, all of them. They care about each other, and they look forward to seeing each other every morning. They even remember each other's birthdays. And then look at the numbers. This store has increased its donations since last year, and they're up 83%. Bravo. A lot of good stuff happening in Steuben. And here's a couple other examples of other sites that pick up. And just to clarify what that store report is on the right, like I know it's a ton of information, but I created these to have something that's public facing that I could send to the stores and send to all of you that show the donations, that show the environmental impact. And I just really want to highlight the agency partners that are picking up and show the beautiful categories that the store is donating. So I've just started putting those out there and asking the stores, please put these on a bulletin board. So I'm hoping to see them showing up at stores. If you see one, take a photo of it. I'd love that. And I'm also aiming to email them out to you all so you have it to share on social media. And we're working to share some of these on our social media as well. So stay tuned. Any questions so far? Oh, good. Brenda? Just unmute. Wait, can't hear you yet.
Okay.
Great.
We don't usually count as donated pounds what we get from Chow, but should we or could we?
No, because Chow
Okay.
already has documented it. You don't have to.
Yeah,
That was a
that's
simple
why we
thing.
don't.
Thank
I
you.
just thought I'd ask. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank
Good
you.
question. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. What am I doing time-wise? Oh, I can't see a clock. Oh, well. All right. No, how am I doing time-wise? Let me see. Can someone tell me, Caitlin?
156, Kathleen.
Okay. Okay.
You're good to go.
So, yeah, these are some highlights from Chemung County partners. Cassandra, I got the photo didn't include you from SDA, but she was there doing the pickup right away. And Oakwood, every picture that I had of your team was super blurry and I couldn't put it on here, but they do a ton of pickup in the county. So bravo. Move on to the next one. Tioga Champs. All right, you all are building relationships every week and are ready for more. Project Neighbor recently started picking up on Saturdays from the Price Chopper. And I think Bread of Life picks up, Valley Pantry, Spencer Van and you all are regularly picking up and reporting the pounds. So thank you. And if I forgot anybody, let me know. Here's a couple pictures I got along the way. Thank you for sharing these folks, these photos. And Galen's on the call. And then again, look at that tremendous growth. Okay. Now, some of it's reporting. Okay. Some of it's us getting our reporting and tagging you all, and things are no longer going under PDP, the general tab. And now you have something to actually put in which store am I picking up from. But it's also a motivator for the stores to see, yeah. And I tell them, okay, some of this is reporting and some of it is they are increasing. And this Price Chopper in particular has increased because there are 5 days a week pickups now, when before it was just here and there. But that's building relationships and gaining their trust and confidence. And the staff is super excited about it. And they are really proud of what they're doing there. So super pleased. Schuyler County, wonderful. So Anina at this top, she's showing the gals from Tyrone Food Pantry around. When I say tremendous, I often thinking of her as well. This receiver fills grocery carts from each department every day. She is so committed to food recovery. And these 5 days a week pickups are picked up between 3 different pantries. She's quite a leader. Schuyler Outreach picks up, Schuyler Outreach picks up, but this is a great example of like what we call a partnership in action. They were doing many of the pickups, but then Tyrone Food Pantry was reopening and really needed some more offerings for the community. And Schuyler Outreach said, sure, take Mondays. And so this was the morning that Anina showed Terry and Angie around to have them get familiar with where to come and pick up. So thank you, Schuyler Outreach, and great, Tyrone, Anina, and all of you. And then the Schuyler County Food Pantry also picks up. So in Tompkins, there's this mother and son team up there on the left. They pick up from Trader Joe's, Walmart, and Target every week, including holidays. Enfield, as you might know, serves at least 200 people every Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So food recovery is super key to their offerings. And it's a nicely packed vehicle there on the right there. Thank you, Lansing Food Pantry. Some that aren't shown here, Tompkins Community Action picks up regularly from Aldi's, and Salvation Army picks up from several places. Really important to mention in Tompkins County is the presence of the Friendship Donations Network. This organization is volunteer run, 1 part-time staff member. It's 46 years old, the organization, and they are critical to food recovery work in Tompkins County. None of us could do it without them. Vital organization, wonderful, well-loved. Oh, and are you on there, Groton? Because I know you pick up as well. And so shout out to you. And we just had fun. So you can see Clint catching air in the bottom. That was the leap day. That was leap day, leap year in March. So we were over there chatting with Nina. She is another one of those receivers who just rallies for food recovery. And some great growth with that BJ's also in Tompkins. Here we go to Broome. Now, Broome has excellent food recovery partners. We have Chow, the large organization, doing so much of this work as an RDO, a redistribution organization with the food bank. And then we have Good Neighbors, so small but mighty, all volunteer organization, and anyone in Broome knows them both. And then there's several other agency partners that pick up. I know that UPC, Shenango picks up at Panera, and Big Lots is picked up by a couple other places. So just want to shout out to them, and also to Our Lady of Sorrows. They're building a strong relationship with the Weiss that's just in their neighborhood. Great things happening. So anyone want to share any roadblocks that you've experienced, any wins? Any little stories? No pressure, but if anyone has one you want to share. Okay, I'll keep going. Like I said, Pete wrote us this job description that will show up on our website, and I'll be sharing these videos that Feeding New York State created. They're fabulous 2-minute videos about food recovery. So I'll be sharing those out. Stay tuned. And then in 2025, we're going to do a little pilot with only folks who are interested, related to food recovery and Meal Connect. So different than what Terry and Catherine have been training folks on, but it does work with PWW. So it is a pilot program, and it does have some like innovative aspects to it that will help with being able to see what you're picking up, and it's quicker in terms of recording the weights. And of course, we're going to incentivize it. So stay tuned. But if you're like kind of intrigued by that, or you have a volunteer who you're like, who's really into these kinds of things, connect us. Okay. And that's what I got. Thanks for being here. In a moment, Caitlin and I are going to Caitlin's going to share the short video that we created on food safety in food recovery. And then we'll have time for more questions, but she's queuing that up. Does anybody have any questions or comments at this point? I appreciate your attention. Let's see. All right. Caitlin, are you ready to rock and roll? I'll stop sharing.
Great, sounds good. Thanks, Kathleen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, everybody, we thought we would share this today. Kathleen and I just finished creating this, kind of just some general good information to know for food recovery when it comes to food safety. This is something obviously that we can talk about today toward the end. And then if you have volunteers or others who are helping you with your pickups and your food recovery efforts, this is a quick little video you could share with them as well to help them get ready to do their first pickup. So let me get my screen shared here. Okay, and I will say, Kathleen, and I tested this, you might have to turn your computer volume up just a bit to make sure you can hear it all right, but this should work.
Okay, well, so welcome to our Food Safety for Food Recovery video. This short video will provide key points to assure that food safety standards are met when picking up food from grocery stores and from other retail establishments. I'm Kathleen Passetti, the Food Recovery Coordinator.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caitlin Price, Health and Nutrition Programs Manager.
So the basics of food recovery is that it's fun and important. By picking up healthy excess food at grocery stores, we make a difference in our communities and we reduce what goes into landfills. When we pick up at a grocery store, we show up on time in the agreed upon time window with that receiver and the different departments. And we show up flexible. That receiver may be backed up, so do expect to wait. We do show up prepared. Stores really do care so much about food safety, as do we. And that store staff won't want to send food with us if we don't have the proper equipment and the ability to keep food at a safe temperature. And then we show up friendly, because why not? It makes their day go better, it makes our day go better, and it really helps support and build that relationship.
Great. So a big question that comes up when we're thinking about food recovery is what types of foods are acceptable. So the good thing is that the standards are going to be very, very similar to what you're probably already using in your pantry in general. So the number one thing is quality, right? With food recovery, obviously we want to be distributing and receiving high quality foods, but we also know that we have to leave a little bit of wiggle room maybe for things that we might have to bring back to our pantry and then discard or compost or donate to a pig farmer once we get back. So of course, we want to make sure that if there is anything that we feel uncomfortable about, or we have some kind of doubts about whether it's safe or not, we of course don't want to risk it and we want to get rid of that. But at the same time, we have to balance that with the fact that we encourage our grocery stores to donate anything that they think we can use. So if it's a big bag of apples and there's only one apple in there that's rotten that we have to get rid of, but then the rest is salvageable, we're okay with that. We'll still take it and we'll take care of it once we get back to the pantry. So that's the first thing. Also, food must be labeled. So very similar to the rules for pantry operation in general, community members need to know exactly what they're receiving and any allergens that might be on the label. So it's important that every food is clearly marked so people can know what it is that they're picking up. Bulk products can also be a big part of food recovery. So if you do receive products in bulk, be aware that the products that are okay to repackage into smaller portion sizes are going to be unprocessed agricultural goods. So things like apples, potatoes, onions, basically any produce that is already kind of self-contained in its own skin. And then also baked goods. So remember that if you do this, of course, you want to follow safe practices, gloves, the sanitized surface, all those good things. And then also to keep allergens in mind. So for example, if you get a bulk bag of baked goods and some of those baked goods contain allergens like peanuts, for example, you want to make sure that anyone who receives a smaller bag from that bigger bag knows that that food could have come into contact or did come in contact with an allergen so that they can make a safe decision for themselves and their families. And last but not least, all meat that is recovered from grocery stores must be frozen when we pick it up, and we've got to keep it frozen in the pantry until it goes home with the clients. And that includes some meats that usually you don't see frozen, like deli meats. All right, communicating about food dates is another big part of food recovery. So the more you can communicate with your clients about which foods have dates coming up soon that the client should plan to consume soon, the better. One of the more confusing foods with food recovery can be prepared foods. So this is an especially important one to communicate with your community members about if they're taking prepared foods home with them. And a good rule of thumb for any prepared food, so that includes a prepared meal, maybe a prepared deli salad, anything like that that comes from the grocery store, that all prepared food should be consumed within 3 days of pickup. So a lot of times a prepared food will only have a sell-by date on it, which doesn't always give us a lot of information about when that food was prepared or how long it's still safe to eat. So a good rule of thumb is that 3-day rule. We want to get it out to community members as soon as we can and advise those community members to consume it quickly within 3 days. Frozen foods can be another food group that can lead to a lot of questions. So when you pick up a frozen food, it may appear that that food has already passed its best by or its expiration date. But as long as the grocery store can confirm for you that it was frozen prior to that date, it is still safe because freezing essentially pauses growth of any bacteria and pathogens. So you can make sure to communicate that with community members as well so that they can feel comfortable that the food is still safe because it was frozen before its expiration date. And last but not least, we'll share at the end of this show here some resources and information that you can share with clients so that they can make their own informed decisions about the foods that they're consuming. All right. Time and temperature is another important aspect of food recovery. So as we know from our general food safety training, the temperature danger zone is the range of temperatures between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is the range at which bacteria can grow the most quickly. And when we're talking about the temperature danger zone, we have something called the 4-hour rule. So the 4-hour rule essentially states that if food is held within the temperature danger zone for 4 hours or more, it is no longer safe to eat. So we as food recoverers and pantries want to make sure to minimize the amount of time that food is in that temperature danger zone. And an important thing to know about this 4-hour rule is that it's cumulative. So time doesn't reset once it goes in the refrigerator or the freezer. It accumulates over time. So for example, if there's 30 minutes between when you pick up at the grocery store and when it gets into the fridge at your pantry, that's 30 minutes right there. And then say it takes the client an hour to get home once they leave your pantry with that food. Now the food has been out for an hour and 30 minutes. So that's just something important to keep in mind when you're thinking about how important it is to minimize the time that food spends in that temperature danger zone. So given that, we do advise that you adhere to a 30-minute maximum travel time between pickup at the grocery store and storage at your pantry.
So we know that getting that food back into your pantry's fridge and freezer is also your priority, and that some of you are also picking up from multiple stores in a row. So we can't emphasize that 30-minute guideline enough because of the many aspects that Caitlin just described, plus thinking about if you're picking up from multiple stores. So let's move on to a couple of other aspects of food recovery. So identification, clean vehicle, and temperature control options. So IDs or name tags. So many of you have longstanding relationships with the store staff, but if you have a new person coming on to help pick up, or you're a new pantry or meal site new to food recovery, I'm happy to create badges for you with your pantry's name and logo and that volunteer's name, or just a general volunteer badge. This can give the store staff reassurance that it's a planned pickup by a verified partner of the food bank. Now, it's common sense to have a clean vehicle and make sure you have plenty of room and the seats are down. And if you're using a truck, please have a tarp. And then lastly, the thermal blanket and thermometer must be on hand. Thermal blankets are really key in this warm weather of the summer, but also in the winter because it helps keep the fruits and veggies from freezing. Feeding America requires that we take the temperature of 1 to 2 items at pickup and as well as back at our sites in order to assure that it was transported safely. So to keep it quick and easy, here's a few tips. Was there an item that was smushed? Take its temperature. Is there a yogurt lid ripped off? Take its temperature. It's pretty easy to sandwich that thermometer in between 2 frozen items, so definitely do that each time. And also feel the frozen products just to make sure that they're fully frozen at the store and then when you bring them back. If food is not at a safe temperature, please discard it. If frozen items are not frozen at the store and you have a good rapport with the store staff, please ask them what's happening with that. But if it's happening on a regular basis that you're picking up foods that are supposed to be frozen and they're not, please contact me so I can follow up and ideally do some more food education with the store. So here's some tips that I have learned from those of you picking up regularly. One person suggests really have a large plastic bag on hand because you never know when something's going to be leaky, or to help wrangle those odd shaped items or just extra overflow out of the boxes. Also, having those extra empty boxes can be very helpful, or totes I've seen people carry, because you'll find that some stores really pile the product in very heavily, and that doesn't make it easy for an average person to lift it. So it helps you spread out the weight. We don't expect you or the stores to be wrapping the cases in plastic bags the way you see in this picture, but I found that some stores just have that as their protocol. So the basic tools for the job: the scale, the thermometer, thermal blanket, as I already mentioned, and the temp and weights log. So we have these tools for you. If you need more of them, please let me know. The log is on our website. Those of you picking up for a while already have a system in place. But if you're new to this, the key thing for a system is that one that you can maintain. So if it's easy to sustain a notebook, great. If a spreadsheet works better for your team, great. Whatever it is, please use it. A few tips about about the weights is that put the empty box on your scale, and then you'll have the tare. You'll zero out the scale, and then you can just pile box after box and quickly figure those weights. If you have a lot of bakery items, that's right there on the package. So if you've got 20 loaves of 1 pound, 1 pound loaves of bread, easy. You just add those up and you don't even have to put them on the scale. Thank you for submitting a stats by the 1st of the month. But if it's easier to do it weekly, please do. If you're having a pile up and you haven't gotten them in on time, please call me or text me and I will help you with it. And the last suggestion around this is to have a buddy. Have a buddy to help with pickups, both at the store and certainly for weighing and putting food away. It can make it a lot more fun and a lot quicker. And for those of you who might just be picking up bakery, I'd love to discuss with you offline how to track those weights, and perhaps there's an opportunity to pick up from more categories.
Well, here we wanted to share a couple resources that you and your team can use to make sure that you have all the information you need to balance food recovery and wanting to make the most of what could end up as food waste, and also food safety. So if you go to foodbankst.org and you go to the partner portal, you'll see we have a food recovery section and also a food safety section. And there's going to be great resources there under both of those sections that you should definitely check out. Two of those resources that we wanted to highlight quickly are that orange chart down at the bottom. And this one is a really nice, just high level overview that lists some storage time recommendations from the date of pickup for different types of food. So that can be really helpful for just a quick reference when you're doing food recovery. And then we do have in our food safety section a more in-depth guide called Is This Food Still Safe? That has information about storage times, dates, what different types of sell by, use by, best by dates mean, and more. So definitely check those out. And then we also have some resources that you can share with community members visiting your pantry. So we kind of have an abbreviated version of that resource on the previous slide, that Is This Food Still Safe card. And this one is about a postcard sized version that you can hand out to clients as they come in. You can send it in people's bags so that they can bring it home with them and stick it on their fridge. And it's just kind of an abbreviated guide to how long different foods are still good past their best buy or sell by date. And then the other resource that we like to highlight is the Food Keeper app. So this is a resource that the Department of Health and Human Services puts out, and you can essentially look up any food you can think of on this app or this website and get information about how to prolong its shelf life, storage tips, and also information about keeping it safe and how long past its date it's still good for. So there's some great resources to share with clients so that they can make their own informed decisions about food safety.
Thanks, everybody. Glad you got to watch this video. All right, all, feel free to come off mute and good. We'll let Cindy back in she was in the waiting room. We have a couple minutes left. We don't need to keep you all the way till 2:30, but any comments, questions, anything you want to share?
I have
Go
a
ahead.
couple questions.
Great.
The food still safe postcards you were talking about, can you send us those?
Definitely can. If you want to drop your name and your pantry in the chat here, I'll make sure we send some out with one of your next orders.
Okay, and then my next question is, if a can comes in that's not labeled and we know what it is, can we just put a label on it or no?
Kathleen, I don't know if you want me to take this one. You can add in anything that you have. I know that sometimes from the food bank, you will sometimes get an unlabeled can. When we do that, we try to also send along some type of paper information to accompany that. So it is okay if it comes from the food bank because we have verified. Unfortunately, as far as I know, it would not be okay from a grocery store. Is that your understanding too, Kathleen?
Well, we've had a couple of items come in at part of the case from the food bank that didn't have a label on it. So, and we knew that it was peanut butter or whatever it was. So I didn't know if we could, just put a label on it, green peas or whatever, or no.
As far as I know, you can because it's part of a case. It's identifiable with the other
Okay.
items. I would also send a photo in, be it to Carolyn or Amanda and Bree, just in terms of like letting them know, because I think it's important that we have that accountability.
Okay.
But if it's part of a case that's enclosed, you can pretty much guarantee it's it's more of the same peas. So that's what I would say. And it's, as well as, not that you ever get a full of anything from a Walmart or wherever you're picking up in terms of food recovery. But if it were one of many that were the same and the label was ripping off or something, I feel like that would be a safe thing. But if you have to guess at what it is, then you got to get rid of it.
Right. Okay. And my last question is, do we need to weigh stuff if like an individual is donating to us or a church has made a collection to us?
It is, and Pat's waving her head too. It is what's encouraged because, and that goes under that category of private donor. It goes
Okay.
under that. Yeah. Not because we're going to be recounting to them, but it does show how much food is being donated in our region. And then that has leverage for
Okay.
the larger work. So I do ask
Okay.
that you do take the time to do it.
Okay. And the same with post, we have a yearly collection from the post office. Okay. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure we've been doing it, but okay.
And the postal service one is an interesting one. And I think we want to track that a lot closer next year to be able to thank the postal service, because some of you have, like, again, longstanding relationships there. And then sometimes it's sort of random on who gets tapped. We do a certain pickup, but then, again, in your communities, you might be the one, the pantry that's picking up. But I think one of my goals is to have postal service in your drop down so that everyone who's picking up from there, and then we can really see what's happening in the region.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
We have some months, right? Is that in the spring?
June.
June.
Um,
Okay, good. I got some months to add that. Okay. Pam and Rich asked for a thermal blanket and a thermometer. Does anybody else need any equipment, or anybody else have any questions or comments?
Just to play on what she had the things that you were going to center, those last few things that Caitlin went over, can we go to a website and copy them all as well? I mean, is it on the Facebook, food banks?
Which one of the resources, Pat?
It was the last ones where you were talking about, the food keeper storage chart. You had like three, there were two on one page. The one, I've seen the other ones, but not the one like had the orange bar across the.
Yeah, we're adding that to both the food safety. Caitlin and I talked about that very thing. We're going to add that to the food safety part of the website as well. Randy's probably done it already. And then to the food recovery and all of the resources that Caitlin and I listed today, we want to get to the website. They might not be there yet, but we're going to get that on those sections on the partner portal, because we want you to have easy access, including the Feeding New York State videos and whatnot. Yep. And now I can't. Oh, go ahead.
I would like a couple of sets then until they get on there, just to put out around.
The orange one?
This one especially. The others, I'm pretty sure that we have.
Okay, you can email that out. Yep,
Or you could email it to me, whatever
Yeah,
works.
can do. Easy. Oh, good. Bill, welcome. All right, where to start as a newbie? Great. And Bill, are you referring to in terms of connecting with the Postal Service or something else? You want to
Well, I'm brand new to this whole scenario, so my work there has been just volunteering, helping to pack, send out, carry out items. And the lady that's running it is currently going to give it up next month. So we're looking for a new director. So I kind of volunteered for that. So where to start as far as a newbie is concerned with the food bank, and this was a good start. Gave me some pretty good information here.
Great, and it's been really sort of specialized. Your programs and partnerships. So Bradford. So is this Tioga? Sorry, Bradford.
Steuben.
Oh,
Steuben.
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 Oh, great. So you have, well, I would have said this about any of the program and partnership coordinators. So Devin, but you have Lindsay Allen, and she will connect with you, and she'll make sure you get to go through Amanda's agency orientation to give you all the tools you need to be that excellent director of your pantry. So thank you for stepping up, and thanks for being here with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone else? And Donna, I'll get you guys a thermometer. Thank you, Pam and Rich, for letting me know it's the postal drive is Mother's Day weekend. Cindy, thermometer and thermal blanket. Okay. Great. What I'll need ideally, if you all can message me, is when you're getting your next delivery. If it's tomorrow, I won't be able to pull it off, but then I can send it with the driver. So you can just come off mute if you know, or send it to me in an email and I'll coordinate it with Joe and the team. But just to make sure they can send those as well. Caitlin might do that for Grattan's postcards, is we send it with a driver.
Mm-hmm.
So
Monday.
So fabulous. Carolyn, any other last words? Caitlin?
I don't think so. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you all. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good to be with you, Pam and Rich. Stop recording. Want to do that?